So let's talk about cognitive dissonance. I made some drawings. Now, cognitive dissonance is when you have two contradictory thoughts inside of your mind. And it basically looks like this, pictorially represented. So when you have a thought that says it's black and you have a thought that says it's white, they basically collide with each other. That creates this mental discomfort. And the reason I used black and white to represent this symbolically is because in essence it comes down to black and white thinking. That is one cause of this problem of cognitive dissonance. But to give a more concrete example, just think of religions. So, for example, when someone believes that evolution is not real because of the things they have read in the Bible, but then they go to the library and pick up a science book about evolution and they read that, and it has clear proof about that evolution is true, then this person will experience cognitive dissonance at first if he just doesn't make up his mind on which side he's going to choose. So the easy way out is to just pick a side. Just pick black and white, or white, sorry. Just pick black or white. So that's the easy solution, that's the easy way out. But in my opinion, or at least based on my observation, thoughts and knowledge and things that I have read, is that it's rarely just one answer. It's usually more nuanced than that. It's usually more layered than that. So the hard way out is to contemplate deeply and to find the rightful context at which a piece of data applies. So then you get something like this. So rather than the two contradictory thoughts colliding with each other, they pass each other by, as you can see. And so it becomes like a black and white combination. So you get something like a gray, but not even that. As you can see, there are multiple levels of understanding, but these levels can also represent context. So it's important to figure this out, because if you don't, you get like something like this, and this is in essence analog to clogged pipes in a pipe system, irrigation system maybe. But in any case, to do this, it requires quite some mental energy, and you can even go deeper and create like tower-like structures of thought and complexity. And this is in essence related to, at least this is what I have noticed, this is related to dopamine, and more broadly speaking to mental energy. So there are also other chemical factors in play to achieve this way of thinking. For example, testosterone is also important, because testosterone makes you more disciplined, and it also makes you more focused, and it also makes you more present in the moment. It makes you more present in the present moment. And this has some consequences as to the way you can think about things. One way to notice whether you have high or low mental energy is really to just feel it inside of your body. If you feel tired all the time, then it means that your mental energy is not that high, because there's a correlation between your mind and your body, and also vice versa. At least you can notice it in your mind, and you can also notice it in your body and extrapolate insight upon about your functioning. And to make this extra concrete, to make this difference between what it means to have mental energy what it means to not have mental energy. So a lot of people may think that they relate to this, but what they have maybe is hypofrontality. And hypofrontality is when you're extremely tired, not necessarily tired, but there's just a low amount of mental energy inside of your brain, and because of that you don't have the energy to smoothly switch your attention between multiple sensory stimuli. So this is what people with ADHD or ADD have when especially kids when they are in a classroom, right? So they see something outside through a window, and because they don't have this smooth way of transitioning between sensory stimuli, they just keep staring at what is happening outside without the ability to go back to follow the material in the class that is taught by a teacher. So in essence, what happens with these people is because they don't have this mental energy to switch between sensory stimuli, is that they keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So mathematically speaking, it looks a little bit like this. There's a very chronological order. So they can go very, very deep. And this is also why a lot of people with ADHD are actually quite intelligent. They just learn in a very different way, and they also learn specific topics much better than other topics. So complex and deep topics they learn much easier because their mind goes just deep, deep, deep and deep until they get at the bottom of things, the root of things. Now, when you're having high energy, high mental energy, it's more dopamine based, and it looks a little bit more like this, pictorially speaking. So when your chemicals are just, in a sense, very abnormal, but not abnormal in a bad way, just very out of the norm. And you will see this in a lot of people with a variety of mental disorders. And these well, at least they do call it mental disorders, but that's just a value judgment. It's just that they have a very different type of mind. So I rather like to call it mental differences, maybe, or mental, maybe neurodivergent. That's also a good term. But people with, for example, schizophrenia, they have this gene, neuroglin-1. You can Google that. I believe they have an excess amount of this gene, and it's also a gene that causes creativity because it makes you think in a very associative way. And because you're making loose associations by proxy of visual stimuli, you can get a very unique perspective on things. So this is also related to genes, how your mind works, right? So it's not just dopamine. Like I said before, there are many variables, but dopamine is important in the sense that dopamine is not a feel-good chemical like most people think. It's a motivation chemical. It makes you want to do things, right? But it doesn't give you the good feeling when you have achieved that thing that you want to do. It's more like an anticipation neurotransmitter. And like the name suggests, a neurotransmitter is just transmitting signals between neurons. And dopamine is like the big transmitter that helps our body and nervous system function. It's really the oil of the signals that we have in our body, right? So you will notice that old people that often have a very low amount of dopamine inside of their brain, they get certain diseases like Alzheimer or Parkinson's, where the memory doesn't work correctly, and also they can't properly make hand movements. Now that's interesting. Dopamine is also related to hand movement because, like I said before, it's really the oil that makes or signals in the body function. So when you have a lot of dopamine inside of your brain, you have more mental energy to execute novel behavior and also novel behavior in your mind. Now I know this sounds a little bit weird. How can your mind have novel behavior? How can your mind have behavior at all? But your mind also has behavior because it's really connected to the body. And you also notice that when you think, you don't actually, it's not actually happening inside of your mind, but when you're verbally thinking, you're just whispering very, very softly to yourself. You are actually using your mouth to generate the sentences inside of your mind. And the way this works is that your brain uses the mouth to help itself to create words inside of your mind, like an associative process. So it's a very mnemonic system, a very subtle mnemonic system inside of your mouth. That is how thoughts, verbal thoughts are generated. The same thing works with visualization. When you close your eyes, you will see dots, a lot of dots. Of a variety of colors, and the way your mind visualizes is by using these dots and moving them around in a very, very subtle manner, and it's the same associative process as with your mouth. But when you have a lot of energy, mental energy, the thoughts become more layered, they become more interconnected, they become more complex, and it's more like a math formula that really ties everything into each other. Now I use this example. It's a formula that calculates the trajectory of for example, a cannon, the ball of a cannon, the bullet of a cannon. I guess that would be a more proper term. So yeah, you have to make a distinction between these two things. And really, how I came up with this is that just by observing my own thoughts. When I drink a lot of caffeine, when I drink coffee and it contains caffeine, now I know that caffeine doesn't give you dopamine. Caffeine works like a brake on your brain. So it breaks your brain from becoming tired. So because you don't get tired, you feel more energetic, but it doesn't actually give you more concrete energy. Caffeine helps your body utilize what you already have inside of your brain much better. But based on some researches that I've read, it not only puts a brake on your brain, it also helps you utilize the remaining dopamine you have swimming around in your brain, so to speak. So in a sense, it does make your brain more dopaminergic. Now, this is just one example. There are also many other examples, like nicotine. Nicotine also helps you become more dopaminergic. That's why nicotine is very, very addictive. You can go around that fact. I still use it myself. I use it in the form of gums. I don't smoke it anymore because smoking is just harmful for your lungs. But the nicotine itself is not necessarily that harmful. In fact, we have nicotine receptors inside of our brain. So it means that it has probably been a big part of our diet since the olden times, Now, I'm not saying that you should use it excessively, but you can't deny it that there is just a lot of research that nicotine can have neuro-enhancing properties, like literally more creativity. And your episodic memory also works much better. That is, memory, for example, when your mom says to you, can you go to the grocery store and buy me some eggs? So episodic memory is basically memory that that arises with data at the right time, at the exact right time. So when you are walking past a store, suddenly these eggs pop up inside of your mind. That is episodic memory. Other examples are quitting pornography, because pornography overly stimulates your brain, And you don't necessarily get more dopamine by quitting pornography, but you do restore the sensitivity of your dopamine receptors. So you become more sensitive to other things in life. Because, porn is a very, very strong stimulus. It's a super stimulus, like scientists like to call it. Also, quitting sugar restores your dopamine receptors significantly. I'm not saying all sugar, you can still eat fruits, but things like Oreos, Oreos are almost, if not more, stimulating than cocaine. They've done some research on this. Oreos are these cookies, chocolate cookies. So yeah, quitting stuff that also helps with mental energy, and just exercise is also good. But yeah, I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm just sharing some of my experiences, and based on my life experiences, when I did very well with my habits. So when I stayed off from the sugar, when I drank caffeine, when I stopped watching porn, I'm still doing good right now. I keep track of all of this. When I quit sugar and stuff like that, then I notice my thoughts become just more layered, more subtle. They become more compartmentalized. And this is also the trick with cognitive dissonance, is to really have a compartmentalized way of thinking. Now, I know this sounds very abstract, all of this stuff, but let me give you a concrete example. So, for example, one thing that I subscribe to is the dark side of your mind, so the shadow side, and really one aspect of the shadow side is just being very relentless. So in business, for example, I'm very relentless with my competition. For if someone makes a copyright infringement on my trademark, I will send a lawyer and I will get I'm not sure how you call this in English, but like they pay me for the damages they have done to my brand. So if they sell 10 products when they are using my brands, I'm going to get that refunded, with a lawyer. And I'm not going to warn them. I don't do that. It's a pain in the ass, and I've read many experiences from other people that have tried that, and it really rarely works out, because these people will just use your brand again and again. So with that, I'm very relentless. I really don't care. The only thing I care about is my goal, and if someone gets in my way, I will slay them, so to speak. However, when I'm trying to work with people together to achieve a goal, then I'm being the opposite of relentless, right? So here's what I'm doing with this, is that I am both relentless and I'm both very kind and I have a very pleasing personality, but then in the rightful context, And you have to organize this properly inside of your mind by using compartmentalization, realizing subtle nuances, and having a subtle thought process. Because if you don't do this, then your brain will get clogged, like I said before, and it will just become chaotic. And you will also become more susceptible to external influences. So basically, life kinda dictates where you go based on its natural forces, like sensory stimuli, because that's how your brain processes things, by using the senses. And information is also processed by using the senses. For example, words or visual pictures. So if you do this correctly, then you have everything in place inside of your mind, and you can look at things from a bird's eye perspective much more properly, meaning that there is a more smooth consciousness going on. Now, the last thing that I want to share is that to be able to perceive thoughts in this pattern-like way, to differentiate them in this visual pattern-like type of way, it really requires a high self-awareness. So I do recommend meditation and generally trying to, I'm not sure how to explain this, but kind of think about death a lot. So what it's like to be dead, like literally dead, not dead in a metaphoric way. And I refer to this way of thinking as a kind of mental synesthesia. So you're having a synesthesia based on thought patterns. I got a little interrupted just now because someone was at the door, but yeah, this is basically what I want to share about cognitive dissonance. It was this video is based on a suggestion from a subscriber, and I will be making some more videos in the future.